In this video, we're going to be taking a look on pages Excel 30 and 31, in which we're going to be typing a function. Now, in addition to using the Insert Function dialog box, the AutoSum button, or the AutoSum list arrow on the ribbon to enter a function, you can manually type the function into a cell and then complete the arguments needed. Now, this method requires that you know the name and initial characters of the function, but it can be faster than operating several dialog boxes. Now, experienced Excel users often prefer this method, but it's only an alternative. It's not better or no more correct than any other method. Now, Excel's Formula Autocomplete feature makes it easier to enter function names by typing because it suggests functions depending on the first letters that you type. So once you get more used to Excel and you get to learn the names of these functions on there, you can just start typing it in instead of have to go through and say, okay, well, I need to click this, let me go find it in the list, or I need to go up here, let me click this, let me go find it here, or let me click on the more functions. You can actually just start typing it. And to do that, let's take a look at step 1. And step 1 tells us we want to select cell B16. And of course you can probably guess on here that we're going to be finding the maximum of this group of numbers for quarter 1. Once we have this, to type in a function, you have to start off with the equal sign, and then you start typing by the letter M. Now once you do that, this is going to give you all the different functions that begin with M, because you're typing manually this function. And first of all, it is necessary that you always begin it with an equal sign. That's the formula prefix. You have to do that, otherwise it doesn't know that it's a formula, or it doesn't know that it's a function. And of course, once you do that, the Formula Autocomplete feature will now display a function of names beginning with M beneath cell B16. And we see that there are several functions that begin with M. That's on there. Now once you type an equal sign into a cell, each letter you type acts as a trigger to activate the Formula Autocomplete feature. Now this feature minimizes the amount of typing you need to enter a function and reduces typing and syntax errors. Now the more letters you type, the more smaller this list gets. So if I would type in MA, notice that the list got even smaller on there. Of course, if I would delete out the A, it's going to take us back to the big list on there. So the more letters you know of the name of the function, the better off you are and the more accurate it's going to be. So once we have this list up, step 2 tells us that we want to click on max. Just the max on here, not the max A, just the regular max. When we click on that max, and anytime you click any function in the Formula Autocomplete list, it opens up a screen tip next to the list that describes the function. And of course we read that and it says it returns the largest value in a set of values. And of course it ignores logical values and text. And that's what we want. So we want to find the biggest number or the biggest number in a set of numbers. And that's what we want. So to select this and input it into our formula, we double click it on there. So I'm going to type it out here on there. You can type that out, but that's what you want. You want it to say max. So like I said, if you would double click that, it would put on there, or you can just type that formula in. And of course, once you double click that, the function is inserted in the cell, and of course a screen tip will appear beneath the cell to help you complete the formula. And of course, for this one, we need to select B4 to B11 because we want the maximum number between these cells, or within this range. Once we have that, we click on our enter button, and we notice that the highest number that's on there, or the result, appears in cell B16, which should be $7,195.06. Now when you completed this entry, the closing parentheses was automatically added to the formula, because you notice I didn't have to type in that closing parenthesis on there. So that's one way of doing that on there. It's a quick way of completing that up on there. So that's just one way that you could do this. And we can also do this as well, and this is going to be a nice trick for you as well to kind of see on there, because for right now we've just been copying one different area on together, because we've been doing like the 20% rise, copying it over, and the average all together. This time we're going to work on just this one set of row right here, these minimum and maximum. So right here what we're going to do is we're going to work on the minimum. And of course on step 5, first of all we need to click on cell B17. Then we type in our equal sign. Then you can start typing in the name of the function, which is going to be minimum. So we're going to type in MI, and of course you can double click this, or you can just finish typing that, MIN, and open up your parenthesis. Two different ways of doing that. Once you have that MIN in parenthesis, there's our screen tip underneath that. We want to select the range once again of B4 to B11, because all we're wanting is just this data right here. And we press enter, and it gives us the result of 1,468.25. So now we have the minimum and maximum for this first quarter. Now, like I said, for what we have been doing is we've been completing the first two and then copying it over. However, in this case, we've completed just only the first quarter, but what we're going to do is we're going to select B16 and B17. We're going to select this range, and this is step 7. We select this range B16 to B17. Once we do that, we're going to click the fill handle, and we're going to drag this over to cell E17. Once we do that, we let it go and release our mouse button, and it tells us that now that the minimum and maximum values for all the quarters appear in the selected range. So notice that all we had to do was that just one time. We had to do the max once and do the min once, and then we copied it over. And of course we can check our formulas. Really no need to do that on there. I mean, if you feel more comfortable doing that, feel free to. But all those have already been updated. So you can see that Excel is very powerful. I didn't have to do very much work, and I've got a lot of results out of this. So go ahead and save your work. Now, of course, you can use the count function as well, or the count A functions as well. That's a different type of function that's there. And of course, when you select a range, a count of cells in the range that are not blank appears in the status bar. So if we would select a range for this, say for an example, this range right here, we see that we have a count of 8 that appears in the status bar. And of course, if we want to count non-blank cells more precisely, or to incorporate these calculations in a worksheet, we can use the count and count A functions. Now the count function returns the number of cells in a range that contains numeric data, which includes numbers, dates, and formulas. The count A function, which is, it looks like counta function, returns the number of cells in a range that contain any data at all, which includes numeric data, labels, and even blank space on there. So that's another function that you could use on there. Of course, if you use the count function in the quick analysis tool, the calculation is entered into the cell immediately on there as well. So I mean, that's another thing that you could use if you want to see with, well, how many orders did we have? I don't want to know how many units we shipped, but how many orders did we actually have? Not the total number of units that were shipped out, but just how many people ordered. Well, I could say, well, okay, let me just highlight these right here. Well, we had 8 orders on there. That would be, using the count on there. Or I can say, well, how many people did we have all together? I could select the whole range and kind of say, well, let's do the count A function. So that's another tool for you as well. So the count and count A, it kind of shows you some differences between, because earlier you might have seen the max and max A. That's some of the differences between those, and you just kind of have to read the descriptions to fully understand those. So just make sure that you do save your work, and in our next video we're going to be talking about copying and moving cell entries. So once you save your work, you're ready to move on to the next video.